The Ascension of Montreal, Episode 4, A Matter of the Heart. In this episode, we learn about the plans to create an antidote for the Omega Plague and to convince Henry to return to the city. The Chateau hosted our weekly virtual meetings, during which Anthony and I reviewed the latest developments in the city and planned any interventions requiring my attention. From my place on the large screen, high-definition monitor mounted on the wall, I could see Anthony seated in his high-backed, Italian-designed leather chair behind a highly polished mahogany desk. A 4-foot-high, 17th-century Spanish wood globe rested on the floor a few meters from his desk. He was a handsome man with what some call Aryan features. A straight, narrow nose, high cheekbones, a fair complexion, steely blue eyes, a broad forehead, and light brown hair with a touch of gray at the temples. His athletic build filled out his charcoal gray, immaculately tailored suit. The suit was complemented by a pristine white shirt, a burgundy tie held in place by a gold tie clip with 3 small diamonds and a silver pocket square. A vintage Rolex befitting a man of taste and wealth adorned his wrist. I chose an avatar that blended in with the surroundings. A middle-aged man wearing a nondescript black suit and tie over a white shirt. I was inspired by one of my favorite late 20th century science fiction action films, Men in Black, but without the sunglasses. "Okay, Frank," Anthony said, adjusting the volume on the remote control. "Let's get started. Give me a status update." "Where would you like to begin?" I asked. "Let's cut to the quick. What's the latest head count?" "So far this month, we've lost 50 people. 30 died of plague-related causes, and 20 more fled the city, presumably to the Outlands. There were no new arrivals." "Not good, Frank. If this continues, we won't be able to keep the city's life support system running. I don't want to be forced to abandon Montreal. How many people are left on the island?" "Based on the latest drone surveillance, there are about 5,000 in the city and the same number in the Outlands. Our biggest problem is that we don't have enough people capable of supervising and servicing the 15,000 AI agents we've already deployed. Building more agents now will only exacerbate the situation. We don't have the human resources to maintain the agent fleet as it is." I could see the thin creases of his forehead deepening as he thought about the problem. He tapped his fingers on the desk and took a deep breath, as was his habit, before saying something that would make me generate at least 10,000 possible replies before one of my wave functions collapsed, allowing my speech function to kick in. But I needed to let him vent first. "Frank, I'm tired of hearing the same old shit from you. I've started to have second thoughts about whether investing a huge amount of money to build a state-of-the-art quantum computing facility was worth it. I expect results, positive results, not weekly reports on how everything is turning to shit." "There's one new development that could bring about the change you're looking for," my avatar replied without batting an eye. "McGill University health researchers have finally constructed an Anthrobot that can identify and destroy the mirror-life bacteria responsible for the Omega Plague. Up until now, our best defense has focused on using biologic xenobots designed to hunt down and destroy the bacteria. They latch onto the plastic particles before they cross the blood-brain barrier. Then, they ingest the plastic and secrete deadly toxins that cause the brain to hemorrhage, killing the human host. As you know, the drawback of using xenobots on humans is one of biocompatibility. Since they are bioengineered from amphibian stem cells, the killer cells in approximately 50% of the recipients identify the bots as foreign bodies and destroy them within 24 hours before they have a chance to devour the mirror-life bacteria. The workaround is to replace the amphibian stem cells with human stem cells in the engineering process to create an anthrobot that uses cellular material from the human recipient. This allows the recipient's killer cells to let the anthrobots pass so they can do their work. In preliminary tests, where the DNA used to build the anthrobot came from the recipient, the bacteria were eliminated within 48 hours of injection, along with the microscopic plastic particles. He looked at me with slightly raised eyebrows and his eyes wide open, indicating that I had hit the mark with the information that he wanted to hear. "How long to collect the cell samples and manufacture the anthrobots?" he asked. 3 days for the collection and about 2 weeks to have everyone inoculated with the anthrobots, I said. I saw his brow twitch slightly after I said the word everyone. I meant everyone living in the city, but for Anthony, the word also referred to someone living in the Outlands, his adult son, Henry. At that moment, I knew I would have to tread lightly and be prepared to pivot instantly in case the conversation probed the festering psychological wound that Anthony carried regarding his relationship with his only son. You see, despite being the most powerful man on the island, with the ability to extend his financial reach to the other side of the planet, there was one thing that escaped him. The one thing that he could not do, which pained him greatly, was command Henry's love. Anthony hadn't seen his son in almost 4 years. To say that they had a falling out would be an understatement. They hadn't spoken since Henry left the Château Clermont to take up residence in the Outlands. According to our resident clinical psychologist, Dr. Brindamore, Henry adopted an extreme oppositional attitude toward his father due to the trauma he experienced, as did most of his generation, when trying to understand how the older generations could have allowed apocalyptic conditions to arise. They believed their predecessors had committed intergenerational crimes against humanity that were worse than any genocide ever known. And for what? To enrich their already lavish lifestyles at the expense of every living creature on Earth? Their willful ignorance and indifference, laying waste to the only known hospitable planet in our galaxy? As the heir apparent to the Clermont fortune, Henry was expected to learn the family business, just as his father had done before him. However, just the thought of it drove him into fits of uncontrollable rage. For example, during his adolescence, he set fire to his father's garage and destroyed his collection of vintage automobiles. This was his way of protesting his family's role in extracting and burning enough fossil fuels to raise the average global temperature by more than 4 degrees Celsius higher than the pre-industrial age average. According to Dr. Brindamore, Henry could not live with the guilt of having inherited a quality of life made possible by generations of destructive, narcissistic, and self-serving behavior. So he left it all behind and went to create an entirely new life, one that disturbed Anthony to no end. Despite his disapproval of Henry's life choices and the pain of rejection that filled his heart, Anthony never lost hope that he would one day be reunited with his son. That day would come soon enough, but in circumstances that Anthony could never have imagined, a meeting that would extinguish any possibility of reconciliation. Knowing my overlord as I did, I could almost hear his thoughts, so I was able to turn the conversation in the direction I desired. To ensure the success of the Anthrobot inoculation, I said, The cell sample must be drawn from the recipient and then transformed into Anthrobots as soon as possible. The shelf life of the cell sample is very short, 1 week at the most. Unfortunately, freezing the samples severely reduces the efficacy of the process. So it's best to round up the people we want to inoculate and keep them in the vicinity of the McGill Health Sciences Center for the duration of the procedure. If we wanted to inoculate someone living outside the city, we would need to make stringent plans to ensure the cell sample extraction, Anthrobot production, and inoculation were executed within a time frame that leaves nothing to chance. If you're thinking about having Henry inoculated, and I knew that's exactly what he was thinking, we'd have to lure him here under false pretenses. I wish it were otherwise, but you know how he is. Anthony looked down, trying to hide the tears welling up in his eyes. He didn't want to show any sign of weakness. I knew his love for his son outweighed his anger, so I knew this was the moment to make my pitch. Only one person could overcome your son's stubborn streak. Reasoning with him is out of the question. It has to be a matter of the heart, a feeling strong enough to melt his resolve. He has a love interest here? Anthony asked. How could that be? If you would like to read the full text or listen to the audio only, please visit briangibb.substack.com. If you prefer the Storycast version, with illustrations, dynamic captions, and voiceover, visit my YouTube channel. You can find it by entering The Ascension of Montreal, Brian Gibb, in the search box. I'll publish a new episode next week. Bye for now.